plug the place that I work because they are sponsoring this event. So Riley and I work at Chrysalis Center. We are a general counseling and eating disorder treatment center. So we see people with like general like depression, anxiety, but we also have a staff that's specialized to treat people with eating disorders, which is partially where Riley comes in. She's a dietitian there. So she treats people with eating disorders, but she can also help people with like general health questions and things associated with nutrition, which is why she's here today. She came to us in July from DeUville.
Yep.
From DeUville College in New York. She's awesome. Her breadth of knowledge constantly amazes me. It's true. So I'm gonna let her get started, guys. I have candy for you.
Yay!
I'm gonna pass candy around. There's also pens in here because Riley has a worksheet for you to do, and there are for parents. Here, I'll give you guys these. Some cards in case you want them. I don't have a list.
Stop smacking your gum.
Please.
He's like, all yours.
Candy and pens. Just pass it around. And I'm gonna let Riley. Yeah, take one and pass it around. You can take a couple pieces of candy. Yeah.
All right, guys. First of all, I'm very, very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a little bit nervous, which hence the chair. So give me some grace with that. But yeah, like Megan said, I'm Riley. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a new graduate. I graduated in May of 2022. And I work at Chrysalis. And my lived experience with this is that I'm also an athlete. I run, so I don't play softball. I've never played softball, actually. So you guys are going to teach me some stuff today, which I'm super excited about. But I have had the experience of fueling myself in my sport. So that's kind of where my experience comes in with all of this. We're gonna go over quite a few things today, but at any point, if you have questions, concerns, anything you wanna ask, just go ahead and raise your hand, and hopefully we can do some questions afterwards too, if you have anything that you're curious about. To get started, I wanted to do just some basic nutrition education. So did you guys, like in health class or biology or science class in school, learn anything about nutrition at all? Yeah?
Oh, wait, a little bit.
Okay, tell me about it. PE?
That's health class.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What did you learn?
How to eat right.
Okay.
Dairy, meat, fruits, grains,
Nice.
vegetables.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so do you guys kind of all have a good idea of like what the food groups are then?
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, what you were talking about is the different food groups. Within those food groups, what I'm going to talk about today specifically are macronutrients, and that's kind of a big word, but it basically just means like the big parts of food that give us fuel. The first one is carbohydrates, so that's things like grains, there's a lot of fruit, sugars are carbohydrates, fats, which are helpful to keep you full, and they're in things like oils and nuts and seeds, and then proteins, which help keep you feeling satisfied, and also give your muscles fuel to do the sport that you do, and just take you throughout the rest of your life. And then, have you guys heard the term micronutrients before? Mm-hmm. No?
Yeah.
Yeah? So those are things like vitamins and minerals. Do you know what vitamins are? Yeah?
I take some every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad.
I take so much
I do too.
sugar on them.
You what?
I take so much sugar on them.
That's fun.
I have to take 4.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's super cool. Yeah, so vitamins are little nutrients. Vitamins and minerals both come from specifically foods like fruits and veggies are really high in them, but all of the foods really have a good amount of vitamins in them. Minerals are from the environment, and they help with some other things in our bodies, but we don't talk about them as much. Have you guys like heard of calcium before?
Yeah.
Yeah, from like milk. That's an example of a mineral. And then electrolytes. Have you heard that term before?
Yeah.
As athletes, I assume some of you guys have. So that's, when you're drinking Gatorade. Gatorade has a lot of electrolytes. All sports drinks have some electrolytes. So the first topic I want to cover, now that we've gone over just some basic nutrition information, but again, if you want to clarify, just let me know, and I will absolutely do that, is fueling before practice. So what you're going to eat before you get to a practice like today or any other time. But 1 to 2 hours before you're starting practice, you're going to want to have a meal that's a little bit higher in starches or carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are the main macronutrient and they're your body's favorite to use as quick fuel. So if you want quick energy, you're going to want to have a breakfast or a lunch whenever practice is that's a little bit higher in carbohydrate so that your body can use it as quickly as possible. You're also going to want to have a little bit of fats and protein in there too, because fats and protein will help keep you full and help you feel satisfied throughout the rest of practice. Everybody is different, so some people, you might be better eating 2 hours before practice, and then some people are going to be better off if they eat closer to like an hour to 30 minutes before practice. But it's your body knows best. So if you're feeling like the food's sitting a little too heavy in your stomach, if you ate closer to practice, then maybe try backing it up a little bit, and that's okay. There's going to be some give and take. You're not always going to know, and that's why it's fun to experiment. In terms of fueling during practice, any practice that's over an hour and a half long, you're going to want to have a snack there just in case. If it's like a 2-hour practice, you might not feel like you need a snack depending on how intense it is, but always have one just in case you do get hungry.
Jim, we never go over.
No, never.
And always having water is important too, especially for practices on days like today. We'll talk about this a little bit further on about like hydration, but water is going to be the primary thing that you're going to want to be sipping on during practice. During practice, similar to your meal before practice, you're going to want to have a meal that's a snack that's higher in starches, because starches is what turns to fuel fastest in your body, and it's going to give you the most energy the quickest. Yeah.
What's a good example of a high starch snack?
Good question. I'm glad you asked. So, some options that I wrote down here are like a peanut butter and jelly, like cutting it into like quarters so that you can take a quick bite and kind of get back to what you're doing quickly. I really like Cliff Z-Bars. They're little, they're pretty high in sugar, they're really sweet, they're really good. Those are going to give you a lot of quick energy. Applesauce pouches, like Go-Go Squeezes, or a wrap with like peanut butter and honey with some granola in it for some crunch. Things that are going to be low in mess. Yeah.
Regular Clif Bar.
Those are cool too. The reason I like the Z-Bars is because they're smaller. So sometimes the full Clif Bar, usually I recommend only eating like half of it during like at a time, because they can sit heavy, but it depends on your body. So if your body likes a whole Clif Bar at a time, that's totally cool. If you want to bring a whole Clif Bar and like eat it in sections, that might work too. But yeah, that's really the only reason. The Z-Bars are just cool. So something I want to talk about is when you have really hard practices and your body's going to feel different during a really hard practice than maybe a practice where it's not feeling as intense. So during hard practices, it can disrupt your hunger cues, which basically means like, when your stomach grumbles, that's a hunger cue. Sometimes if you get like a headache, if you haven't eaten in a long time, that's a hunger cue too. But when you're working, hanger, yep, that's one too. Yep. So sometimes when you're working really hard though, your body kind of puts those hunger cues on the back burner a little bit, and you're not going to feel them as strongly, but that doesn't mean you don't need to eat, even though you're not feeling hungry. Make sure you're eating like one snack every 1 to 1.5 hours, especially when you're practicing really hard, so your body has the fuel it needs. And if you're struggling with that, especially if you're not feeling hungry, just try taking a couple bites of a bar or a snack every time you stop to take a sip of water. And this is a term that I'll define in a little bit, but it's called mechanical eating. Have you guys ever heard that term before? Okay. It basically means eating even though you might not have the cue to eat. So knowing your body needs some food, but not feeling like you're hungry for it. And that's normal with athletes who are working really, really hard, is you might not feel that hunger feeling like I mentioned. So knowing, okay, so my body doesn't feel hungry right now, but I know it's been a couple hours since I took a bite of something to eat. So I think I need to fuel my body right now, even if it's not telling me to. But we can talk about that later, and if you have questions, you can feel free to ask. Fueling after practice. Planning to have a meal within an hour or so after practice is just a good practice to make sure you get the fueling you need. And I'm realizing that I'm saying the word practice a lot of times, but just bear with me. This meal is going to be higher in protein and fat than any of the meals or snacks that you had before or during practice. It should also have carbohydrates though, because your body still needs them, because they are the bulk of what you're going to be eating throughout the day and throughout the rest of your life. It's your body's favorite. And a fruit or veggie for what we talked about earlier, electrolytes and micronutrients, so vitamins and minerals. Your body will need the protein and fat after your workout more than it needs those two nutrients before your practice. And when I talk about doing like a meal after practice or after a game, which I'll continue to talk about in a minute, think about it like a peace plate. So you guys know what a peace sign looks like, right? Okay. Well, I have a worksheet that's going to show you a little bit, like a diagram of what it looks like, but basically divide your plate into thirds. It's going to be a peace sign missing one of the lines. So think about starches in one bit, protein, and then a fruit or a veggie in the other third. Does that make sense? Okay. Again, I have a visual. Yeah, what's up?
Sorry.
No, please.
So our practices, once we get to weeknights and stuff, we live a little ways away.
Okay.
So usually it's pretty much eat before practice, get home, take care of it.
Okay.
So what do you suggest?
That's a great question. So in that case, I would recommend having something like in the car ready to go and just to drink on the way home. Typically, I usually recommend a drink. So one of the best post-practice snack options, if a meal isn't going to work, is chocolate milk. So keeping like a chocolate milk in the car, especially if it's going to be cooler, or you can keep it in like a cooler, or just having that when you get home, or maybe making like a smoothie. But something that you can sip on easily that isn't going to upset your stomach will be the best option in that case. But that's a really good question.
So what about a protein shake or something like that? Because I'm saying that breakfast, or not breakfast, I want to say that just eating a heavy meal and then kind of
Mhm. That's fair, yeah.
So, but I know you need something.
Yeah, so a protein shake or like a chocolate milk is gonna be a good option. The reason I recommend chocolate milk is because of the sugar in it. The sugar is gonna serve as that carbohydrate component. But a protein shake would work just fine too, especially if you guys enjoy protein shakes. And also protein shakes are usually like they shelf stable, so it's easier to like take with you in the car. But you're right, going to sleep on a full stomach can be a little uncomfortable sometimes. If it works for you, that's totally okay, and there's no reason not to. But if it doesn't necessarily work for you, then yeah, a protein shake or another drink like that would be a perfect option. So let's move on to talking about tournaments or game days. These are exciting days, so I assume you guys have a lot of emotions around tournaments and game days, like anxiety, nerves, excitement, all those feelings. Yeah. And that makes sense because it's exciting. I would assume you're also pretty sleepy because I hear you hit the road pretty early on those days. So this is another example of a time that your hunger cues can get masked by the fact that you're tired and you don't really want to be up so early, or even if you do want to be up early, it still doesn't feel great in your body to be up that early sometimes. Even though you might not feel hungry, it still means that you need to eat. It doesn't mean that you don't need to eat breakfast. You still need to eat breakfast, especially because you're going to have a long day ahead of you. So maybe thinking about quick and easy breakfast that you can take on the road with you would be the smartest option. First, I want to ask you guys though, like how long are your tournaments / game days? Can
All
you
day.
teach me? All day? Okay.
Like
How many
15
games?
hours sometimes.
That's a lot of time.
Including
How many
driving,
games
yeah.
Yeah.
do you normally
So
play?
play-wise, just to give you right now, play-wise, we may play 2 hour and 15-minute games back to back, and then we may have like an hour break, 2 hour break, and then we'll play till we lose. So
It's like 4 or
they
5
can play
games.
anywhere from 3, 4, 5 games, and there's usually
Okay.
30 minutes to an hour between.
Got it. That's a lot of softball. That's pretty cool, you guys. I'm glad. So then breakfast is going to be really important. Maybe thinking about combining some snacks into meals would be the easiest option in this case. So like bringing a lunchbox with you. Do you guys all go together or do you all go separately to the games?
Sometimes we go together, sometimes separate.
Okay, so it depends. So bringing like a lunchbox with some examples of quick combined snack meals would be like peanut butter crackers with applesauce and a banana, or an Uncrustable with a banana and another fruit, or another fruit. That's a lot of fruit if you did 2 fruits, but
I love fruit.
then bring 2 fruits.
That's all I eat.
Well, we love fruit.
Especially those hot days. For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Or maybe a granola bar with chocolate milk and a fruit on the side. Or you could do just quick and easy breakfasts, like a bagel with peanut butter and fruit that you can just like make it ahead of time, put it in a bag, and bring it with you on the bus or in the car. Or like a mini bagel with peanut butter if bagels are feeling a little bit too much in the morning. with milk and fruit on the side. And then with tournaments and game days, you're gonna wanna hydrate ahead of time. So when I think about hydration for athletes, it's kind of fueling, you're gonna be hydrating the day before for the day that you wanna have. Especially if it's gonna be really hot outside. I see you guys taking sips of your water.
Wait, while you're on this point,
What?
when should they start hydrating for a tournament, Riley?
For a tournament, I would recommend starting hydrating. I mean, getting in the routine of it like a couple days before, and then the day before is really when you're gonna wanna hydrate a lot. You're gonna wanna hydrate through the entire tournament too, of course. But especially with the nerves and anxiety and excitement that comes with that, you're not gonna probably feel as thirsty as, your thirst cues aren't necessarily gonna line up with what your body actually needs that day. So think about it the day before, and then consistently through the day.
Oh, that makes sense, cause you're, okay. That makes sense to do it the day before, cause you're not necessarily gonna do it the day of. As much
It's
as
gonna
you
be
should.
harder on the day of, yeah.
Gotcha.
So Riley,
Yeah.
you mentioned peanut butter and a bagel.
Yeah.
If someone is allergic to peanut butter, do you have a good substitute for peanut butter?
Absolutely. So I like sunflower butter. It's sometimes a little bit tricky to find. And then there's like a soy-based spread too that's really tasty. If it's just a nut allergy in general, that's what I would recommend. If it's just peanuts that you're allergic to, then like almond butter or like Nutella, all of those options, just a different nut would be totally fine.
Sunflower butter is really good, especially if you like sunflower seeds. It literally tastes like sunflower seeds.
It's very good.
Mushed up. It's kind of weird, but it's so good.
Keep in mind that hydrating the day before in addition to what they would normally drink. They
Absolutely, I can. So hydration the day before.
I
What would
didn't
be
hear the
too much?
question, Megan.
What?
I didn't hear your question.
Oh, I asked like, so hydrating, so on top of what they would typically drink, what they should be incorporating, and if there would be an amount that would be too much. Because we can overhydrate.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes. So when it comes to hydration, for you guys, usually 1 to 2 liters a day, or 1.5 to 2 liters a day, is good for a day you don't have practice and you're just going about your normal life. So that would be like, you guys know like the plastic water bottles. That would be like 3 to 4 of those, or those Gatorade squeeze bottles. That's going to be 2 to 3 of those. And obviously everyone's body's different. Some people are gonna feel like they need more water, and that's okay. And then on game days or practice days and the day before, you're gonna want to double that, essentially. So 2 to 3 liters. So again, probably 3 to 4 of the Gatorade squeeze bottles, or 4 to 5 of like the plastic water bottles, if that's a good reference. The way that you're gonna know if you're hydrated properly is actually the color of your pee, believe it or not. So if it's the color of lemonade, that means that you're perfectly hydrated. Everything's looking good. If it's the color a little bit darker than that, it's probably a good sign that you need to drink some more water. And if it's too light and it's like clear almost, that probably means that you're a little overhydrated, and either to consider like an electrolyte supplement like a Gatorade, or to kind of back off on the amount of water you're drinking a little bit. But that's the best way to tell. And
I was gonna ask, how should they be working in electrolytes on top of the water?
yes, that's an excellent question. So in terms of incorporating electrolytes, I'll talk about it a little bit more when we talk about exercising in the heat too, because I know it gets very hot in the summer, and I assume you guys will play games when it's very hot. Yeah. So the way that I like to go about it is mixing Gatorade 1-to-1 with water, especially because it just makes it a little bit easier to not have to go between 2 bottles. And then mixing in, so 1-to-1 for one of your bottles. If you finish that bottle, fill it up with water and kind of alternate back and forth. It doesn't need to be perfect, but a consistent stream of electrolytes on those really hot days. Yeah. No, I love it. I love questions.
So I just saw something that said, not, I'm assuming it's results, but that before strenuous workout improves performance.
Yeah, caffeine definitely can. It depends on your body, and it
What about
depends.
for teammates?
To be honest, I'm actually not entirely sure what the research says about like adolescents using caffeine for exercise. Yeah.
So coffee is a stimulant, so it will make performance for anybody. But it also, the way that it stimulates us is it activates our sympathetic nervous system, which is also activated when we're anxious. So I
of your normal routine?
Sometimes.
No, it's not part of her.
Okay.
Hey, but that doesn't mean that
But you can get caffeine-free things
I would
at
say that
Starbucks.
I would stick with what you're comfortable with right now. And if you like Starbucks every once in a while and it doesn't make you more anxious before games, then it's okay.
Love Starbucks.
Just depending on what your parents say, obviously.
Riley, what about
You
soda?
never get started
Soda.
before games. Let's be clear.
Soda, like context to soda, like when
During exercise at tournaments or whatever. Like, I mean,
Like with their lunch
is it
at a
often
tournament.
available to them during lunchtime?
yes and no. I mean, like,
Okay.
The concession stands usually have it.
Right. And it's just kind of like we don't have it,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess I asked the question for everyone to kind of hear the answer.
What was the question about?
Soda.
Like soda
Drinking sodas
during,
during
a tournament,
tournaments and stuff
at
like that.
lunchtime or whatever.
So soda's basically just a really condensed form of sugar. Your body's going to access it quickly, and especially being a performing athlete, it's not going to hurt. What I would say with soda is because it's so high in sugar, it could be part of like what leaves you a little bit dehydrated after the meal because the balance of sugar.
Okay.
And the carbonation might also upset some people's stomachs. And I know you guys are running a lot. I know you're going all over the place. So I would always, if you're going to have soda, make sure you're drinking an equal amount of water with it. And being mindful of how it makes your body feel afterwards. Because I know it's a really fun, sweet treat. But it's good to be aware of how it's going to impact you.
Yeah, it's so hot though, you guys. Like, if you're gonna be extra dehydrated, she's not your parent, so she's not gonna say it's not a good idea. But I think that's really what she's saying.
Save those treats for
You don't want to be dehydrated.
After the tournament's
Yeah,
over, maybe.
absolutely. And maybe enjoying it afterwards would be a better choice during game days for sure. Yeah.
No, I was gonna ask the question too, with soda and then like energy drinks like Monster and Red Bull, they're more likely to make you crash. They'll make you come up real high with a lot of energy and then they crash.
And they also oftentimes have caffeine or other stimulants in them that can have that exact same effect. Yeah. And they also, like, caffeine can also suppress your appetite. So if you're taking in caffeine and then it makes you eat less and as a result of that, it's gonna lead to a crash probably later in the day. Yeah, Doc.
Can we have talkie sunflower seeds? Oh, I have those. I have those.
What are those?
They're they have coffee seeds sitting on them, but there's sunflower.
That sounds so delicious.
They are.
So good.
It's like super popular.
Whose kid is that?
I love it. No, that sounds phenomenal. Sunflower seeds are a really awesome snack. They're full of a lot of essential fatty acids, and Takis are delicious. So I would say yes.
I mean, they would technically be adding in the mineral stage because of like the salt and stuff like that.
Definitely. And extra salt on, like when you're playing a competitive sport and you're exercising a lot and it's hot out, the more salt really the better. Like, because you're sweating a lot. You got to replenish what you're losing in the salt, in the sweat. So I'm thinking about it as coming from like a running perspective. Like we runners don't have to worry about salt. Athletes typically don't have to worry about salt. So if you like salty food, that's okay, because your body's gonna lose a lot of it.
I love salt.
That's cool. Me too.
That doesn't mean oversalt your dinners.
Oh, that's true. Add the salt that you like to add.
Yeah.
Okay. I lost where I was. Give me one sec. So, we talked a little bit about meals between games. So normally you're eating lunch during tournaments, right?
Yep.
Do you guys have days where you play just one game, or is it usually just
Not
no?
usually.
Okay, that's
I mean, rec ball, yeah.
but
okay.
Well, that's like at the nighttime, so it's not like really hot.
Okay, but normally you're playing multiple games.
yeah.
So, meals between games. I know that it's pretty much what's available to you guys or provided then. Is it like, I assume it'd be like pizzas, hot
No,
dogs,
we bring
what's-
coolers
Bring
with
coolers? Okay.
yeah, we bring coolers with all of our lunches and snacks. They do have like the opportunity to go to a concession stand and get a piece of pizza or something.
Okay.
But generally we bring food.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. If you guys have food available then, again, your primary nutrient is gonna wanna be starch. So like bread in a sandwich, or the crust of a pizza, or the roll of a hot dog, like all of that is starch. But also try to have a fruit or veggie because it's gonna replenish some of those electrolytes that get lost when you're sweating a lot, that not all sports drinks will have in them. And it'll also give you quick energy if you have fruit. And your appetite on game days might be off, like I mentioned before. So for lunch times, you still need to eat the lunch and do your best to like finish the portion that you set out for yourself, unless you're really, really full, and then that's okay. Don't force anything. But practicing that term I used earlier, mechanical eating, practicing mechanical eating during lunchtime if you're not feeling hungry will be important so that you do get some nutrition in before you start playing a lot of games, which it sounds like you're playing a lot of games in the afternoon. So I want to ask you guys, what does hunger feel like in your body? Like stomach rumbling?
You getting mad?
Oh, getting you, yeah, hangry?
Yeah, usually, when I get hungry, it's when I'm cleaning my room, so I end up throwing my pillows all over the place.
Okay. Okay.
Or on the phone. Very specific.
That is very specific. I like it. Details are important. So what about getting like low energy and achy? Anybody feel like achy when they get tired? Yeah. And feeling jittery or shaky? Feeling dizzy?
What does that mean, a heart attack?
Well, those.
I can tell you all of you guys do. You're real hungry. Just not focusing during the game. Oh yeah, that happens.
Low focus. Yeah, you can't focus. That's a very, very good observation. Yes.
When you focus on that.
And you'll probably think more about food than you would other times because you're hungry. So that's why it's so important to keep eating snacks during the games and having food available to you. So that brings me to snacks during game days. Snacks are really going to be a tool for you. They're going to help you keep your energy and keep your focus and give you the ability to keep playing well. And I know that that's very important, especially because you have long days. It's hard to stay focused for that long. Eating a snack between an hour to 30 minutes before you start a game, and plan on having a snack right when you finish a game if you don't have the opportunity to snack during games. If you do, again, like I'm not sure what your guys' schedule looks like, but keeping a snack like within reach of you or wherever your water is and taking a couple bites of it every time you're taking a sip of water during a game is always going to be a good way to like kind of foolproof your fueling strategy, if you will. And snacks, again, like during practice, should be predominantly carbohydrate based so your body can turn it into fuel as quickly as possible. Meals after the game, this is similar to meals after practice. You're going to want to have a meal or like a protein shake or a chocolate milk within an hour or so after. And the reasoning behind having like something really quickly after is because it'll give your muscles some fuel to start doing recovery immediately and replenishing immediately. And it'll help you get from getting too hungry before you start a full meal and having that like hangry feeling in your body and feeling like really tired and irritable, because that's no fun. So this could be something like chocolate milk or a protein bar or a protein shake, as I've mentioned a few times now. And this meal again should be higher in protein and fat than any of the meals or snacks you have during your game. And then carbohydrates there too. So thinking about a piece plate for after games too. Yeah.
So like during the tournament, should their lunch be what you're talking about is higher in protein and fat? If they're gonna play some more games, or
So it should have protein and fat in it, but it should still be predominantly carbohydrate based. But there should be protein and fat, because if you're going like 15 hours without like that full like protein and fat heavy meal at the end, you're gonna need some to keep you full and like satisfied throughout the day too. It's a good question. For after or during? Okay. So you said like Chick-fil-A is what you mentioned? Yeah, I would say with a Chick-fil-A, it's gonna be higher in fats, which is totally okay. It's really about how your guys' body tolerates it. If you really like it and you can turn it into energy quick and your body doesn't feel like kind of like really, really full from that, then that's okay. But sticking with the carbohydrates, so maybe getting like a fruit cup or like a lemonade or something with that's gonna be turned into energy really quick, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the weather, and then I'm gonna pass you guys out a little worksheet. Weather, okay, so the heat in Wilmington, I'm not from here, I'm from the Northeast. The heat down here isn't a lot, it's a lot.
Same.
So kudos to you guys for being able to be like competitive athletes and all that heat. It's hard. You're gonna be sweating a lot, I would assume, and the more heat and the more humidity, which we have plenty of here, the more you're gonna sweat, and the more important it is that you replenish your electrolytes and your fluids. You guys know how sweat tastes salty, right? Yeah. So that's because you're losing all of that salt in your sweat. It does, because it's really high in salt. So when you think, if you're sweating a lot, you need to have a lot of salt to replace it. And this is when having a sports drink is completely essential. Like, you're gonna need one around when it's on really, really hot days or humid days when you're sweating. And I'm thinking even like yesterday, if you guys had been playing outside and it's hotter than it had been, your body is not gonna be acclimated, because your body can also acclimate to heat and humidity. But if it's an unseasonably hot, humid day, that's also when you're gonna wanna have a sports drink. Alternating between Gatorade and water works really well, like I mentioned earlier, or mixing the 1-to-1 with water, because Gatorade is actually supposed to be diluted. It's not really talked about a ton, but it's more, not necessarily more effective, but it's easier to prevent dehydration if you're mixing it 1-to-1 with water, so that you have extra water and you have Gatorade with it. There are also other electrolyte options if you guys want to, or get bored of Gatorade or feel like you want to switch it up a little bit. There's things like powdered sports drinks. There's Gator Light, which is Gatorade's electrolyte mix. It's very high in salt and other things like that.
Is it the Square?
It's Square, yeah. Have you guys had it before?
I opened that for my teacher. She said she didn't like it.
Because it's salty. It's salty. But the cool thing about that is when you are sweating a lot and you take a sip of it, it's not going to taste as salty because your body needs the salt, which is kind of cool. Like, it changes that quickly.
Wait, so what is it called?
Gator Light.
And like they have versions of them with my brother. So.
Yeah. And there's also, if you guys have heard of Pedialyte, that also works.
So they like pickles. So
That's a great idea.
should they be making sure that they're mixing water with pickles?
Yeah, you should, well, maybe not like making pickle infused water, but if you want to just, if you're eating pickles, make sure you're taking a sip of water after your pickles. Like, having your pickles with some water will be essential, and I love that idea. That's actually so cool. I love it. And I guess I mentioned how to know when you're hydrated properly, but it's also worth knowing some signs of dehydration. Even like, there's minor signs and then there's more severe signs. The minor signs are going to be just feeling like your hands are getting a little cold, or your feet are getting a little bit cold even though it's really hot out. You're super thirsty, you're getting like kind of a headache. The more severe signs are going to be confusion or feeling really tired all of a sudden, breathing fast, or feeling like your skin is really hot in your cheeks and cold in your hands. And that just means that you need to get some water and you need to take a seat somewhere cool and kind of reset a little bit. So, I'm going to pass out this worksheet. I made about 1 million copies of it, so we're definitely going to have extras. But basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to make a game plan for your game day. So you're going to make a plan for before, and I have examples up here. You're going to make a plan for during and for after, and I have the piece plate right here too. So obviously this isn't going to be perfect. This is going to be an example with options that you like on it, which is the most important thing, because you have to be eating foods that you like in order for this to be successful for you. So, that hurts out. You can pass it around, or you can take more than one if you want to. Honestly, there's many.
Sarah, give me this.
We need an extra copy for Caroline.
Here, give me. Take one.
To make sure I was actually going to sit on the bucket.
I think that's a really good idea, because like I know Lucy, you don't like to eat much during tournament days, but to choose foods that like you really like. That some of the examples she gave.
And if you guys want to do it with your parents too, and having them come over for some examples, that would be awesome. What?
You guys can use all.
That's okay. If you need, I can also help you if you want.
I mean, nothing like that.
I need some more color.
No, but
Yeah, use them all.
it's that.
Stay right there.
Someone can use this bucket here.
I'm just gonna write.
Yeah, you can stop.
Dang it, I'm just. I get started.